Hello you, and welcome to the last Daily Rundown of the week with me, Dan Morfitt. Thank you for watching Channel 7. The Daily Rundown is the show where we look at all of the day's big stories and some little ones as well. Tonight we'll be discussing telesales for ISIS, Israel and abortion laws in Ireland. It's going to be one of those light shows this evening, isn't it? Light. But first, let's welcome tonight's guest who will supply the Daily Rundown with insight and attitude. The man is an enigma, a whisper on the wind and a diamond in the rough. Presenter, writer and documentary producer Drew Tosh.
I like the diamond in the rough. I like that idea. Yeah.
I like the whisper on the wind. That's my
There are
favourite.
worse analogies they could have used.
Yes.
Like you can't polish that. You know what I'm trying to say here.
This is a family show.
It is.
And it's the Green Man and author of Solstice, Tiger, Sounds of Soldiers and latest piece, Kettled, Ian Pattinson.
Hello.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Yeah, pleasure, as always.
It's very, very hot tonight. So
It's very hot.
during the show, I've got a big fan here, and
That'd be a first.
whenever you want to talk, please pick up the fan first. It's going to be like our conch shell of trust tonight. Right, so don't forget as well, you can get involved with the show too. We're as interactive as you like. Joining the conversation on Twitter at The Daily Rundown, or at the very, very least, give us a follow. We might even follow you back, so please be interesting. Now, to look at our first story. Israel has suspended entry permits for 83,000 Palestinians after gunmen killed 4 people in Tel Aviv. 2 Palestinians from the occupied West Bank opened fire on shoppers and diners at the Sarona precinct. 4 were killed and 16 people were injured. The Israeli government later announced a permits ban on Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip who had planned on visiting relatives in Israel, attending Ramadan prayers in Jerusalem or travelling abroad via Tel Aviv airport. In a statement, Hamas warned that the State of Israel would have more surprises during the holy month of Ramadan, which started this week. Ahead of the focus on potential terrorism around Euro 2016 then, is it too easy to forget about terror elsewhere? Ian, what do you think about this?
It is, because just after the Paris attacks, there were bigger and nastier attacks elsewhere in the world. And we don't really, I mean, even I can't remember what they are, and I'm bringing the case for it.
I think, yeah, a couple of days after the Bataclan and the killings in Paris, around 180 people died in Afghanistan. But people on Facebook weren't changing their profile picture to an Afghani flag, were they?
Paris is closer. On a good day, Paris is safer. We've been there, most of us, and we know what it's like. We've experienced it. There's a certain amount of clan loyalty. You know them, so we can laugh about. You can go on about how the history of Great Britain is we're at war with the French, but they're our neighbours.
Yeah. We haven't invaded France for a good, 450 years, perhaps?
Well, technically we invaded them in 1944, but that was because someone else was there.
Yeah, that's a helping hand.
I remember the 6th of June, it was
Yeah. Of course, just a few days ago.
Sounds like we're due to invade again then, doesn't it?
Drew, what do you think of this? Because, to ban permits for all Palestinians to enter Jerusalem, especially at the moment during the holy month of Ramadan, then Hamas saying there could be more surprises in this holy month. It's another tit-for-tat war in Israel that seems to be on the brink of boiling over forever. What can be done about it?
Absolutely nothing, I suspect. It's been going on for so long. I mean, I'm like probably a lot of people watching this just now. I don't even claim to understand it anymore. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why it's ongoing, but there's been so many attempts via various, UN interventions and God knows what else to try and resolve things, make things better, and it just doesn't work. Some people, to me, will never be happy, will always want to pick a fight at a war, and religions play such a big part in that. It's just become more apparent again now, because as you say, the terrorist sort of like circumference is getting wider and wider and closer again to all of us. I think you're right. The reason we didn't hear about Afghanistan or think about it so much the way we did with Paris or Brussels is because we're more familiar with those countries. Afghanistan seems like a long, long way away.
11 policemen were killed in Turkey at the beginning of this week.
These things are happening all the time.
Forget about it.
And it's almost like a daily, certainly if not weekly occurrence. The quantity of fatalities may be smaller or whatever, but it's still all part and parcel of the same thing. But we never, as you say, you couldn't change your flag on Facebook as many times as these things are happening, because it's just, and the sad thing is we're almost sort of immune to a lot of it as well. It's like it's sort of, you see it on the news, you just think, oh yeah.
Is that
Same
the thing?
old, same old.
It's just another piece of news.
There was going back many, many years, there was a not the 9 o'clock news sketch about it, which descends into language we won't use here, but it starts with how something terrible happened to one person in London, and then something slightly worse happened to somebody in the Midlands, and then 2 people died in France, and the further and further away they were, the further down the news it got. But the more, but weirdly enough, more people died, but they mattered less. And it's...
I remember that actually, yeah. So
I think Frankie Boyle did a version of it a couple of years ago.
I think I saw some like Spike Milligan do it as well. It was sort of, he was just reading the news, and there was an incident in the UK, and X people were wounded or whatever. There was an incident in, I know, Brussels, and X amount of people were wounded, but none of them were British. Yeah. It doesn't really matter so much. And it's that kind of thing about if it's not in our own backyard, it doesn't affect us directly, we're not as concerned.
I have noticed that, with the incidences of plane crashes recently, or planes just disappearing, it's always how many Britons are on board
first thing they say every time.
What about all the other people on board and their families that are worried? By the sounds of it then, if Spike Milligan did a sketch about it, if Not the 9 o'clock news did a sketch about it, 81, 82?
80 something, yeah.
Things have never changed.
And things have got a little bit better. We're slightly less parochial, but it's still there. It's still your in-group and your clan.
I kind of wonder what it would be like in reverse. Are the news stations, I wonder how TV in, say, Afghanistan was covering Paris.
Well, I
think... curious to know how it works on the other side.
I think when the Bataclan attacks happened and Paris was virtually under siege for a couple of days, Al Jazeera did not run it as their main story. There were other things going on, I think, in Jerusalem at the time. In Iran, there was some talks going on. And then the world media sort of turned on Al Jazeera going, Paris has happened. It's like, well, Afghanistan's happened, and there's been Libya happening, and there's almost an atrocity every other month at the moment in Ankara and Istanbul. And they got a lot of ire from Western media, but then, like you said, when it's the other way around, you have to cover the news in your own backyard, I suppose.
Pretty much. It's a shame that we're immune, sort of almost immune to some of these stories now, that it doesn't make you go as much as it should do. I think that's the worrying thing, that we just get complacent and have, compassion fatigue or something, because it's just becoming the norm, which is probably more frightening than anything.
And this stuff and worse happened in the past, and we didn't hear about it as quickly, because you didn't have somebody there with a satellite phone to report on it.
Not even a satellite phone now, it's, Twitter.
Just passing, they can film it on their phone,
Yeah, news used to take days to get to Sandy Gall and Alistair Burnett on the news at 10, and you'd be hearing news not even third or fourth hand, it would be 5 days old, it'd be filtered, it'd be through different Reuters and PA and Associated Press. Now it's almost instant, and the journalists, rather than getting a story, have to clarify a story that's already broken by members of the public. Looking at this, though, in Israel, for example, this problem seemingly never ends. Hamas saying that this holy month of Ramadan, they're going to get some more surprises. What do you think will it take for Israel and Hamas to possibly sit down? We never thought we'd see peace in Northern Ireland, for example. We've sent Tony Blair out to be the Middle East peace envoy. Nothing seems to work.
Well, sending Tony Blair out probably is part of the problem. You have to admit it.
I was not trying to allude to that at all.
Hamas has to stop saying that they want to destroy Israel. Israel has to admit that the Palestinians deserve a state, and that it's somewhere that the state of Israel can't decide to just lock down randomly, which is what they've done. Effectively, the Palestinians are living in one gigantic open-air jail. If you can lock down the whole of that population, which is what they've done, they're effectively prisoners. And you need a Palestinian state that is self-governing, and you need everybody within that Palestinian state to stop saying they want to destroy the state of Israel, which is one of Hamas's guiding principles.
And in the West, do we leave them to it, or because Israel was formed because of Britain, because of America, and because of post-World War II, what do we do there?
We don't goad them on. We don't goad them on.
We don't send Ross Kemp in, because he seems to turn up everywhere. And whenever there's trouble, there's Ross Kemp. And I'm thinking, where's the connection? It's him.
I think Ross Kemp's now back in EastEnders, so thankfully won't be seen on the streets of Jerusalem. With that then, the Rabbi Jonathan Sachs recently said anti-Zionism is the new anti-Semitism. Can you be anti-Zion, anti-Israel, and at the same time be not anti-Semitic? We've had all these problems in the political parties that sort of have disappeared.
I think to be anti-Israel is pretty much indefensible. You have to defend the right of the state of Israel to exist. That does not mean you have to defend everything that the state of Israel does. And I'm not entirely sure what Zionism covers, but I believe it's the belief in the belief that there should be a state of Israel.
And this, of course, all comes from Ken Livingstone the other week saying that Hitler was a Zionist. He's provable in the annals of history. He had a point, but
it was a different interpretation of an actual fact than what everyone else wanted it to be interpreted as. It
was a sneer more than anything. This won't be the last terrorist atrocity that we hear about. It won't be the last terrorist atrocity that we can't do anything about. Drew, do you think we should look at the news a little bit closer soon and almost treat this as news and important and take it on board, or just ignore it?
I think because the news is so... It's what we were saying before, the news is very much geared towards your own backyard. I think if there was, God forbid, there was an atrocity of any kind, it still would come second billing to the EU referendum, because that's happening right now. That's all anybody's talking about. I've often thought that the news is slightly skew in their sort of pecking order of priority and importance, and it's always surprised me sometimes that some of these things are slightly further down, as the chief news item. There's so many sporting events as well over the summer. I think that's a big deal, a big issue. Obviously, football, tennis, Olympics. There's a lot of concern, I think, because of all of these prime targets, I guess, where you're going to have people from lots of different nationalities in the same place. It's very scary. I think maybe that's another reason why a lot of people don't sort of think about it, because they just don't want to. It's better to try and just not think about it. And if that means blocking it out if it's on the news, then maybe that's just the way people deal with these things.
Well, it's going to be one of those things that is going to keep on rearing its ugly head, and we'll keep hearing on about it in the news. Time for a quick break now, but the three of us will be back in just a couple of minutes to discuss more of the news on the Daily Rundown, including rendition flights to Libya and the UN intervenes in Ireland. Right, we'll get Brew on, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.